that they have such brand power. This is why it's almost impossible for new entrants into, that kind of mainstream media space, even those with huge amounts of money. How many times have we seen like a new newspaper launched with millions of investment and it's gone bust within, a few months or a year, because the power of the brand in news is phenomenal. It's unlike any other, I think, unlike any other industry or sector. The BBC is the BBC, right? It's known all over the world. It has such a it's so seeped into the public consciousness, that it will always be taken seriously, even if it's not believed, even if it's attacked, even if it's criticized. It will always be taken seriously as, as a proper news organization, as a real news organization. And the same is true to a lesser extent, but to a similar extent with broadsheets like The Guardian, The Times, and whoever else. So I think when it comes to brand power, you can't compete. And the other problem that you've got now, of course, is that the platforms are totally cottoned onto this, which is why that they are actively promoting and reinforcing that brand power through their algorithms. They've been doing this for a number of years. And it's really interesting because it just shows how upside down the whole kind of dominant discourse is about the relationship between tech monopolies and the mainstream media, and indeed about the relationship between mainstream media and public trust. Actually, what's happening, or what's been happening over recent years, is the exact opposite of that whole narrative that, oh God, we've got to help save the BBC and the newspapers because otherwise, it'll be the whole news agenda will be taken over by Breitbart and Kremlin-controlled bots and whatever else. It's the exact opposite is happening. They've totally consolidated their grip. I mean, newspapers like The Sun are reaching an audience today that they could never have dreamed of, in the 1990s. I mean, Murdoch, through The Sun, has such a bigger audience than he's ever had. And he doesn't even care about profits. That's why he's held onto The Times for 30 years without ever making a profit. He's not even interested in profits. But even if he was, but The Sun, he does make a profit. So it's just a no-brainer, and it's an incredibly well organized cartel. That's basically what the mainstream media is. It's a cartel. They protect each other's interests. They stop other people. I mean, what's really interesting on this is actually if you look at how new entrants, the tiny number of new entrants. I mean, you can't even count them on really sort of two fingers. I mean, it's basically Huffington Post and BuzzFeed, that have kind of entered the mainstream media sector over the last 20 years, how they have evolved from starting out as quite disruptive and even potentially radical in their news agenda to becoming literally a virtually no different to any of the established mainstream liberal press. And that's because of that cartel power that actually, and again, it comes back to this issue of like, well, if we want to be taken seriously as part of the mainstream media, we can't be banging on about this issue, this line about anti-Semitism, because people will just think we're kind of cranks and left-wing crackpots.